Hi everybody, I am with George at On Track Audio.
Oh, you hear that? Sounds like a helicopter.
That's not the topic of this video.
No.
I am here to ask him to explain how to use the seasoning knobs, the salt and pepper and garlic knobs.
From the C312.
From the C312.
Right.
I just built it and designed it. My C312 is actually on a colorful prototype board that nobody would touch.
Yeah. Which this came from. The preamp section anyway.
Yes. So I am going to move the camera closer to that thing so you can actually see the marking and all those knobs so you know what he's talking about.
All right, bring it in. Bring it in, bring it in, bring it in.
Off the tripod. That means you're going to shaky. There. And the bottom one is a C312.
Here we go. Yeah. Don't look at this for now.
Yeah,
this is the SCK4. We'll talk about that later. Well, actually, much later. Not in this.
Can we get some light, please?
Yes.
Get in dark.
That
Yeah,
enough? There we go.
Yeah, there you are.
All right. So,
Okay.
here are the three knobs we're talking about. The warm knob.
Okay. Turn your light up a little bit so we don't have the reflection.
Okay.
Yep, that's good. Perfect.
Got it?
Yes.
Okay. So, no reflection. Here we go.
A little bit up. Yeah. Not too far. Down. Perfect. Stay there.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
All
Warm
right.
knobs.
Warm knob. Tube knob. Solid state knob. Okay. So the warm knob, how technical should I get? A little bit technical?
A little bit technical, but don't get too technical.
Okay. So the warm knob controls the overall input volume to this section of the preamplifier.
Yeah. On the right, there's the
Yep.
volume control knobs. That's the master control.
Yeah. And this is kind of the input. This is the input gain. Now, you have to have this turned up and one of these two turned up to get any sound. So, if you want a neutral, now there's so many ways to describe how this works, and I need my fingers now.
Okay, give me a light. Give me your light. I can actually hold the light too.
Okay. All right. So, anytime you've got these three knobs in the same position, you basically have a neutral setting, unless you get too extreme. If you get to that, then it's not a neutral setting anywhere. But anywhere down in here, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, that's a neutral setting. This controls, the warm controls, it's an overall, how much of this do you want? So it's an overall, how much tube flavor do you want? All right. Then what we have over here is the tube controls a little bit of how much of a tube you want, but this is kind of a modern tube sound, so it's also a control of what flavor of tube sound you want. The more you push this up, the more you get a modern tube sound, like a small tube sound, like a sparkly tube sound, not a fat gooey sound. Okay, if you want a fat gooey sound, you need more of this. If you want sort of a sparkly, shimmery 3D type of sound, you want this.
Yeah. So when George said gooey sound, that means he meant the warm knobs.
Yeah. Gooey over here.
Gooey is
Gooey
the
here,
warmth.
sparkly here.
Yeah, sparkly is the tube S.
Yeah, okay?
But they're both tube sound.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and you can mix and match these to get a different, a whole pile of different tube flavors. Okay, so this would be a really old school type of sound. This would be very tubey, but sort of a sparkly sound. This would be less fat, more shimmer.
Okay. We're back up. When you turn the knob, can you move your hand down so we can actually see where the pointer are?
Okay.
Okay, try it again.
All right.
Then make it lower. Yeah.
Got it?
That's right.
There we go.
Okay, there we go.
There we go.
Try
Okay.
it again.
So, if we want a fatter sound, if we want to make the sound fat, old school, vintage, sort of a floppy tube sound, we want to use a lot of warm. Okay. If we want a sparkly 3D, shimmery type of tube sound, we use more of this and less of that.
Okay, tube S go to the 2 o'clock and
Yep.
warmth go to 10 o'clock, so kind of things.
Yeah. 1 o'clock. Yeah, 1 o'clock, 10 o'clock. Yep.
All right, yeah.
Okay. And then now, the real way to use this, I suppose, is to set the amount of overall kind of warmth you want, and then use these two knobs to control how much tube and how much solid state. But I've always found, in other users I've found, and I've sold a number of these, I've always found that these two knobs work together and these two knobs work together. Now,
But these two knobs meaning that
solid state
and the master
and the
volume.
master volume.
Yes.
That's, I mean, the way you interpret these is really kind of personal. I think it's one of the reasons why I've sold so many of them. I also think it's one of the reasons why a lot of people don't buy them, because they're not willing to take the chance on using their own personality to find the sound. But for me, the way I call this one to me is fun, sparkle, and punch. And that's how I use them. And if I want more punch, I use solid state. And if I want a real solid state sound, what I'll do is turn everything else down and really use the master volume. Right? So a setting like this gives you a lot of punch and a lot of push, but it gives you a little bit of warmth. Okay? If you want more sparkle, add that in. If you want more fat, add that in. So you're really mixing fatness, sparkle, detail, punch. That's how I use them. And how I term them sort of depends on the day I'm talking about. I mean, this is obviously not an exact science. I mean, I don't ever have any trouble dialing it in. I've gotten to the point where I can kind of zero this on a pair of speakers and an amplifier for a sound I like really quickly. Usually, I mean, with most speakers, it's usually something for me like this, right? Depending on how warm the speaker sounds, but that's kind of this is kind of a go-to setting for me right there. So warm button on about 1 o'clock, tube control at about somewhere between 7 and 9 o'clock, and solid state between 11 and 12. That's kind of a go-to sound for me.
But if anybody new to begin with, then can we start all three knobs around 9 to 10 o'clock?
Absolutely. I would depending on how loud your system is, I'd either start at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, maybe 10:30. No more than that. And that gives you a fundamental starting point. And you can from there, you can start to experiment. If you leave these two at 9 o'clock, if you start to turn this up, then you can really get an idea of what the warm control is doing.
Yep, so the 9 o'clock is always starting point.
Yep.
If anybody feel that they have messed up the sound, turn it back to 9 o'clock.
Turn it back to 9 o'clock.
And start over again.
Yep. And then you can, put it there, turn up the tube setting, see what you get out of that. That'll be more of a sparkly 3D holographic type of sound, and then this is detail and punch, and this is ultimate punch. This is what you want when you really want to get a sock in the chest, if you want that.
So that's the basic idea how to use it, and there are obviously there's more advanced use of this preamp.
Yep.
But that's the idea for everybody that's beginning to use this. That's a starting point. That's a good starting point, and then your master volume control, you get familiar with the sound, and then turn the master volume control to control your final volume, not too loud, not too quiet, and that's a good starting point. And then in the future video, we can actually do more of details about what setting for what speaker, and combine with another one of my adjustment units, and we can do another video on discussing that.
Yeah. The other thing, the last piece of advice I try and give anybody that's looking at this preamplifier is, if you're not comfortable making the adjustments, then this really isn't the preamplifier for you. The adjustments aren't complicated, but you have to have confidence in your own sense of your personal sound. You have to be not worried about what sounds right, because there is no right. Okay, what's right is what's right for you. I think that's about it. Want the helicopter sound again? Helicopter's coming in. Sorry.
What right for me is not right for him.
No.
So that's why I don't use his system. I just here to visit.
Yeah. And vice versa.
That's right. He doesn't come to visit me often. If he come, he doesn't listen to my system because he doesn't like my sound.
Actually, that's not true. I do like your stuff, and I do like your system.
Oh no, he like my stuff.
Yeah.
But doesn't necessarily the way I set things
Oh,
up.
I like your system. I like the way it's set up.
Oh, like okay, we can argue off the camera.
Bye. I just like mine better.